And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth, and the great nation faces great drama on Capitol Hill because today Donald Trump's acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, same guy who was Trump's personal attorney in some of his many, many legal problems before he became the Attorney General. Todd Blanche is facing a Senate confirmation hearing to take on his role as acting Attorney General permanently. There were mistakes that were made, Blanche says. I always love that. That's what they call the passive voice. It's not we made mistakes or anyone made mistakes. The mistakes were just made. It just happened. There were mistakes that were made, Blanche says, when asked about the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files release. In a dramatic exchange, Blanche vigorously defended FBI Director Kash Patel, who could use with some defending, I will stipulate, dismissing questions about his conduct as extraordinarily obnoxious. I think the terms extraordinarily obnoxious, that is a good fit and a comfortable fit for Kash Patel. Blanche has also pressed on the lawsuit between Trump and the Internal Revenue Service. Deportations of Iranian asylum seekers and the president's eligibility for a third term. Now, can we try to understand that if they are on Capitol Hill talking about President Trump's eligibility for a third term, these ought to be very quick hearings. If there is no eligibility for a third term, it is impossible. Even if the Congress of the United States says, we need this man. We cannot go on after 2008's election, and 28's election. We can't go on beyond that moment without Donald Trump in charge, steering our ship of state through rough and stormy waters. We need him. We need him. Doesn't matter. There's a Constitution. There is a 22nd Amendment. The amendment was adopted by a near unanimous vote of the then, at the time, 48 states, and also a 2/3 vote of the Senate and the House, and it's the law. So the idea that they are wasting time on Capitol Hill talking about Trump's eligibility for a third term, this is peculiar. The Attorney General is the Justice Department's top law enforcement officer, and Todd Blanche took over on an interim basis after Pam Bondi left the role in April. And again, that's kind of the equivalent of the passive voice. She didn't leave the role. She was fired. And I don't think President Trump would doubt the fact that she was fired. Meanwhile, Washington Post is reporting that President Trump is rushing to the defense of immigration agents whose enforcement surge led to 3 deaths. It's now 3 deaths in the past week, countermanding Tuesday's suspension of traffic stops that was imposed to contain the damage. This is not a good situation in any sense of the word. The latest reversal underscored the White House's bind between delivering on a core campaign promise for mass deportations. They were trying to go for a quota of 2,000 deportations every day, and repeating a cycle of escalating arrests and recoiling from the political fallout. The men and women of ICE are doing a great job, great, all in capital letters. This is what Trump put on Truth Social. One that has to be done. Trump said of Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in a social media post on Wednesday morning. We cannot give up one of ICE's most important and effective crime-fighting tools, the traffic stop. Okay, the traffic stop is a crime-fighting tool. The people who have been shot recently are not criminals. You're not fighting crime by shooting them while they're driving to work. And again, there have been a number of articles today about the victims in Biddeford, Maine, and the victims in Houston, Texas, who seem to be very sympathetic people. One of the things that everybody can agree on is that they were not criminals. They did not have criminal background or criminal record at all. And as a matter of fact, one individual had American citizen children, 3 of them that he was supporting. He had a business where he employed people. And he had been living in the United States without criminality for 35 years. So to talk about a traffic stop that leads to shooting through an open window, it now comes out, and killing somebody at the wheel of his car, this is not a good thing for ICE. It's not a good thing for the country. And trying to defend it is a very, very bad piece of news. And speaking of bad news, Iran has no plans for negotiations, says a foreign ministry spokesperson. Iran will continue to respond firmly, that's their word, to U.S. strikes and has no plans for negotiations. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai told Iranian media today, "We currently have no plans for negotiations and remain focused on defending the country." Baghai told reporters outside a Tehran memorial to the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son-in-law, according to video from Iranian outlet SNN. "This is a principle. We will continue to follow it," Baghai said, adding that Iran believes the United States has disregarded the ceasefire from its inception. Soon after SNN reported the spokesperson's comments, semi-official news agency MER reported that the U.S. struck Iran's Hangam Island near the Strait of Hormuz. There'll be more on that. We also have coming up a conversation with Rick Newman, who is the founder of the Pinpoint Press and former senior columnist for Yahoo Finance. He takes a look at the Trump record in his second term. And the Trump record in his second term not only has some good news, which is that rich people have done well, people who are rich have done well, but what Trump does not acknowledge, and Rick Newman will try to make that case, is that the economic status of poor people, of struggling Americans, of people in the lower middle class who are fighting for work and for self-sustenance, that has not been good. That has been moving in the wrong direction. Is this part of that old liberal line that when the rich get richer, it's bad for other people? Well, not quite. It's more specific in terms of its criticisms of Trump policy, particularly concerning tariffs and taxes, the dreaded 2 T's. Coming up, Rick Newman of Pinpoint Press, right here on a busy day on the Medved Show.
And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
And on the Michael Medved Show, the news shows that U.S. inflation slowed to 3.5% in the month of June last month, as energy prices fell. That's good economic news. The stock market, generally very good economic news over a period of time. So what's wrong? Why do so many Americans feel that the economy is in trouble and they're being screwed? Rick Newman, who is the founder of Pinpoint Press, a former senior columnist for Yahoo Finance, and the chief business correspondent and Pentagon correspondent for U.S. News and World Report. Rick Newman says, look, we've got a problem right here, which is Trump's second term isn't just making the rich richer. That's not necessarily a problem. The problem is it's making the poor poorer. Rick, how do you square that with some of the statistics you have in your column? And the column is very challenging reading, and it's terrific. But you make the point that the stock market rally that has been underway since late 2023 has been a terrific boom for anybody lucky enough to have investments. It would come to more than $115,000 per household if the money from the stock market boom was distributed evenly throughout the country. So how is that really making the poor poorer, as you suggest?
So there are a bunch of different things going on here. What I'm really zoning in on here is inequality, economic inequality, which is sometimes referred to as wealth inequality or income inequality. And it's a long-standing trend. We've had worsening inequality for probably 30 or 40 years in the United States. A lot of that time, it was minimal. I mean, it was happening at a very slow pace. You wouldn't really notice. But when you look at the changes that have happened over the last 40 years, I mean, it's really striking. I mean, we have extremely high levels of wealth inequality in the United States now relative to our history. So a lot of that, we know the rich get richer because they own most of the stocks, they own most of the real estate. That in some ways, there's not anything that's really new about that. But what has been happening during the Trump administration is President Trump's own policies have been making the rich richer. That is the tax cut bill, for example, that he signed last year, which mostly cut taxes for the wealthy. And they didn't need it. They just did not need the tax cut. If you look at the wealth that's being generated by the stock market rally, they just didn't need it. But at the same time, that tax law and other policies that Trump has signed or supported have done things like cut food aid for people who get federal food aid benefits. That was actually part of the tax bill last year. The Congressional Budget Office, which is the arbiter of these things, found that for the bottom 20% of Americans, they would actually end up worse off financially from that tax bill than if Trump had done nothing, because they're not really getting a tax cut and they're going to lose food aid. Another big thing that has happened is healthcare subsidies that help people pay for policies under the Affordable Care Act. Those expired at the end of last year. So something like 3 million or 4 million people are now going without health insurance because they can't afford it. So, these are not simple problems. These are things we've been grappling with for a long time. But when you hear how pissed off people are about the economy, I think this is one of the big things that's behind it. People really don't have an easy way to conceptualize inequality, but this is one of the big things that's really making people upset.
Well, one of the big things that Trump promised for his campaign, actually it was for his campaign for his first term as well, and for this term, he promised that the tariffs were going to do a great job of making everybody wealthier in the United States. How has that increase in tariffs worked out?
I mean, I can only laugh. I mean, it's really just preposterous that if you add a tax to imports, it's going to somehow make Americans better off. I mean, almost no economist believes that. That's just Trump convincing himself that this thing is true. So the stated purpose for the tariffs was to boost manufacturing in the United States. We have seen literally zero improvement in manufacturing employment in the United States. And just to throw in here, I think the real reason, the unstated reason Trump loves tariffs is they let him micromanage the economy. He can reward friends and punish enemies by raising or lowering tariffs. And I think that's the reason he likes them, but we're stuck with them. The other thing that is hurting people, obviously, is the Iran war and the increase in gas and energy prices, which is not over, unfortunately. Again, this is something, all of these things, when you raise the cost of everyday products, it always hurts working class people, lower income people more than wealthy people because they spend a much larger share of their income and sometimes all of their income on necessities that they don't have a choice. The wealthy don't really mind that much if gas goes from $3.50 to $4 a gallon, but somebody commuting to a construction job does care. So another ding from Trump's policies.
So what about President Trump's ability to close down this gap between rich and poor, which he has a lot of rhetoric about that? But what is it that he could do that could possibly bring some of these elements of prosperity to struggling families, to families that are having a tough time right now?
I mean, I wish there were a simple answer to this. There's not. I'm not a big fan of let's just punish the wealthy for being wealthy and raise taxes on them so that we can. And what you really need are policies that help more workers cash in on a digital economy and now on the AI economy. That doesn't mean handouts. A lot of times that's stuff that happens at the local level, local and state governments that help apprenticeships and help people get connected to businesses in that area and get the skills that they need. We are going to have higher taxes at some point in this country. I mean, this is just a mathematical certainty because we're going to have to do something about Social Security is going to run out of money. The budget deficit, the giant, $39 trillion in debt is going to become a problem at some point. We are going to have to raise taxes. And oddly enough, Michael, Congress did just pass something that might be a little bit helpful over time, which is this housing affordability bill, which was a bipartisan effort. Both parties support it. And Trump wouldn't even sign it. So it went into effect because he didn't sign it, but he wouldn't even take credit for it. It's quite puzzling.
It's all astonishing. Your column is very informative, hard-hitting, and persuasive. It is called Trump's second term isn't just making the rich richer, it's making the poor poorer. It's posted at our website at michaelmedved.com. Rick Newman, Godspeed to you, and look forward to talking to you next time.
See ya.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
And CBS is reporting that the U.S. military has talked about a new wave of strikes on Iran that was underway today. That's only hours after a fourth consecutive nighttime barrage as the war ramps back up in a battle to exert control over the Strait of Hormuz. Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan reported incoming Iranian missile or drone attacks today as Iran lashed out again at U.S. allies in the Middle East in retaliation for ongoing American strikes. The latest round of overnight U.S. airstrikes on Iran wounded more than 260 people, an Iranian health official said today, while a government spokesperson said at least 30 people had been killed in recent days by U.S. attacks. And they're not the only ones who were killed. There is also a report ABC News that shows that data reflect a massive increase in executions of political prisoners in Iran. Under the cover of conflict, the Oslo-based group Iran Human Rights, a non-governmental organization with members inside and outside Iran, believes the Iranian regime has ramped up its executions. So far this year, the regime has executed at least 47 political prisoners, a massive increase from 16 around the same time last year. Amid widespread protests across the country at the end of last year, U.S. President Donald Trump warned leadership in Tehran against a violent crackdown on demonstrators, saying America would come to their rescue. Well, that, of course, hasn't happened. And they now estimate that there have been at least 50,000 political prisoners, protesters who have been killed by the Iranians. As Trump and the White House tired of the U.S.-Iran conflict, and I think it's safe to say that the White House is tired from that conflict, and the global economic repercussions worsened, their language softened, and support for any Iranian dissidents waned, if not disappeared. Have we heard much from Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump about the fate of dissidents, of protesters in Iran? Not so much. What we have heard about is the Epstein files. And today, during a hearing on Capitol Hill, it's a hearing that is supposed to get us ready for a confirmation vote for Todd Blanche as the new Attorney General. He's the acting Attorney General right now. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche was cross-examined by Dick Durbin, the senator, Democratic senator from Illinois. And the subject? The Epstein files and the Epstein response by our government. This is clip 10.
Don't you think it's important that we have a prompt response by our government to these survivors?
Absolutely. And there will be a prompt response. My heart breaks for every survivor, every victim of Mr. Epstein. Absolutely. And I would love to prosecute anybody that did any harm to these victims.
Will you meet with them within the next 30 days? The last time I asked a question, you can say yes or no.
I can keep on answering it the same way. I can meet with them. My staff will meet with them. We have a staff member here
today. If you can meet with them, will you meet with them?
I'm not sure what you're looking for me to say. As I said,
yes.
There are, if they're represented by counsel, I'm not allowed to meet with them directly, as you know. I assure you, the FBI, who are experts in this space, prosecutors who are experts in this space, and me, if necessary, will absolutely meet with them. I promise you this.
I think I
will stay updated and know everything that's happening with any victim that has information about any other people that work with Epstein, that committed any crimes with Epstein. Absolutely.
Well, if you're truly committed to extraordinary transparency, and you're willing to meet with these victims, I hope you will do it immediately, or we're going to hold you to it.
Okay, that's Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, a ranking Democrat. He has been in the past the number 2 Democrat after Chuck Schumer in the U.S. Senate. And speaking with Todd Blanche, who is facing a tough struggle to try to win approval as the new permanent Attorney General. Meanwhile, one of the things that you will not hear from the President of the United States tomorrow night when he is giving a much heralded speech, the Associated Press reports President Donald Trump will deliver a primetime address on Thursday night that he says will include a focus on what? His favorite subject. Inflation? No. The war in Iran? No. The cost of living? Well, that's inflation. No, it's not that. Nothing about the economy, actually. He will deliver a primetime address this week that he says will include a focus on elections, suggesting he could revisit long debunked conspiracy theories about his 2020 loss to Democrat Joe Biden. The speech comes as he has escalated calls for Republicans to pass tighter federal voting rules for November's midterm elections. The Republican president has been guarded about what he plans to say in the 9 p.m. Thursday speech, scheduled as he confronts a collapsing deal to end the war with Iran. He also faces numerous domestic issues, including recent deadly shootings by immigration and customs enforcement officers. Asked for a preview of the speech today, Trump offered scant detail but said he has really big news. Doesn't get bigger, said President Trump, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. Trump made that declaration in the Oval Office. He refused to go further, saying he wanted to save it for the moment tomorrow night, though he also hinted he would be talking about a hodgepodge of issues. Quote, "We'll be discussing other things too," Trump said, without elaborating. It's going to be a very big announcement. Trump has used the power of a primetime presidential address, typically reserved for milestones, to deliver politically charged speeches before, including one in December when he sought to blame the challenging economic climate on Joe Biden, who had been defeated for the presidency in the actual election that took place in 2024. But Thursday's address seems poised to go even further, using the moment, according to the Associated Press, using the moment to amplify election lies before an audience of millions in an effort to boost Republican prospects before midterms that threaten to hobble Trump for the remainder of his term. On Monday, when he was asked about the speech, Trump repeated baseless claims of voter fraud in the Los Angeles primary for mayor. During the interview with conservative outlet Newsmax, Trump said Republican Spencer Pratt lost his primary bid because of fraud, citing, in fact, California's slow vote count. Federal prosecutors said they were opening fraud investigations.
Medved.
Hey, I like your new RAV4.
Thanks, yours too.
What does RAV stand for anyway?
To me, it's the Remarkably Advanced Vehicle.
Really? To me, it's the Runway Approved Vehicle for its amazing style.
What about Remarkably Adaptable Vehicle because of its versatile cargo space?
Or Really Admired Vehicle?
Oh, or Really Awesome Vehicle.
It really is the recreational activity vehicle. The stylish 2026 Toyota RAV4 Limited. What's your RAV4?
And on the Michael Medved Show, as President Trump gets ready for his big speech with some big news, he says, big surprises, it's coming out tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We all look forward to it. He's supposed to be speaking about elections. There's an indication he may even be speaking about the failed election in a Democratic primary. It's actually a nonpartisan primary because it's California where they have a jungle primary. In any event, it was California, one of the most Democratic states in the union, and in the city of Los Angeles, one of the most Democratic cities in the country, that Spencer Pratt, a reality TV celebrity, had run as a Republican, even though he had never been active in the Republican Party and didn't really take conservative points of view. But President Trump ended up supporting him because he was running against a very Democratic mayor of Los Angeles, who was a former Democratic councilman. In any event, the idea that Spencer Pratt actually won the election because in the early returns he was ahead, that apparently is part of what he's going to be speaking about, which really going where? Probably going to him pushing for the adaptation of the Save America Act, which he considers right now his number one legislative priority to try to accomplish before the midterm elections, so that the midterm elections won't be, quote, rigged and won't be stolen against him. Meanwhile, not everybody is listening sympathetically to President Trump's continued obsession with the election of 2020, where he lost to Joe Biden. He lost the popular vote by 7 million votes. He lost virtually all of the key decisive swing states in that year, 2020. He turned around and won them again in 2024. And in any event, Hunter Biden, who is the surviving son of Joe Biden, he has quite a record, and it's not a positive record. He obviously is not a particular credit to his family, but he just did a podcast interview, Hunter Biden, on his message to President Trump. What is the message from the former president's son to the current president? Well, here it is, but some of it has to be bleeped out. This is clip 9.
I would tell him to go his self. That's what I would tell him. And please leave. I mean, like I can be civil and I can tell you, like, oh, well, listen, he's the president. I don't want him to be pissed off. I mean, it's the president of the United States. Well, obviously, wouldn't you want to have a constructive dad? This man has tried to torture me for 10 years. He says the that he says about my dad, that he says about my dad, his obsession with tormenting my dad, hanging a picture of an auto pen on the colonnade, demeaning him, and all the things that he said about him. And anyone would expect me to do anything outside of which I would never do is physical violence against that person? Well, what kind of man would I be if I didn't tell him to go himself? What kind of man would I be? And I ask that to all of you UFC fans. I'm a UFC fan too. You know, I've challenged Don Jr. to a cage match 3 times now. Never heard back from him. That's how I'm going to pay all my debt.
Okay, a UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship match between Hunter Biden and Donald Trump Jr. Really? Is that what we've come to? When he refers to hanging a picture of an auto pen on the colonnade, what he's referring to is President Trump in his reconstruction of the White House and the tearing down of the East Wing. They have put in a new walkway that has pictures and plaques of all of the previous presidents, all 46 people before Donald Trump, who have held the position of President of the United States. And except one picture is missing, and the picture is Joe Biden, and in place of a picture, they have a picture of an auto pen, which is supposed to represent the peak of Trumpian humor. Another enemy of Donald Trump's, who just got lucky, she actually got paid the $5.6 million that she was awarded in court from Donald Trump. E. Jean Carroll, speaking to the Daily Beast, slammed President Trump, despite the fact that he's now paid her the first installment of the money that the judicial system says she's owed for having been sexually assaulted, says the court, while she was in a dressing room at a New York department store. Here is E. Jean Carroll on the Daily Beast, clip 20.
How people can be afraid of a fat, elderly man who wears apricot makeup, his hair done up like Tippi Hedren in The Birds, and sits in a courtroom and moans and groans and complains and snorts when the jury got a load of him. They were mesmerized. You have never seen anything like it. He never sat still, and he talked the entire time within earshot of the jury. He belittled Alina Habba Esquire, his own attorney. He would spit as he was talking. He didn't smell so good. And the high point of Donald Trump in court was the moment he stood up with steam coming off his back and hot air blowing out his ears because Robbie Kaplan was giving the final argument, and she was asking the jury how much it would take to make him stop, and she drove him. You think Robbie Kaplan's afraid of Trump? No, she turned it around. She drove him so crazy, Joanna. He stood up in the courtroom and left.
Tell us how you really feel, E. Jean. She is not a Trump fan. Again, according to decisions that have been rendered in court, Trump still owes her more than $80 million. Now, she may never get that money, but a $5.6 million payment this week, which she has already received, that says something about our court system working even against a very, very powerful participant. Meanwhile, speaking about very, very powerful, billionaire Elon Musk likely broke Wisconsin law by handing out $1 million checks to voters in the 2025 state Supreme Court election. A bipartisan panel has now found. The Wisconsin Elections Commission last week referred 2 complaints to the Brown County District Attorney's Office, which can choose to bring criminal charges over violating the state law against election bribery. Prosecutors have 40 days to report back to the commission. Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and CEO of Tesla, was deeply involved in the effort to flip majority control of the highest court in battleground Wisconsin. The tech titan and groups he supported spent at least $20 million on the candidate backed by Republicans, Brad Schimmel. However, he lost by 10 percentage points to Democratic-backed candidate Susan Crawford. A month after the lopsided loss, Musk announced that he would be spending far less on political campaigns. Spending on that election topped $100 million, making it the most expensive judicial race in all of U.S. history. There's more about expensive mistakes, miscues, and misrepresentations, including the latest from Iran. We will get to that and more coming up in this fateful era for the greatest nation on God's green earth.